Hey, it's Sarah Jane, and I'm coming to you from Amaya. It is very, very hot, and the lions are all sleeping. So I wanted to just pop in and give you a video today around a theme that keeps coming up with many of you that have posted and asked for messages from these incredible lions, the children of the sun gods. I will be getting to them. I've just had a very uninterrupted broadcast while I'm out here. So the collective message really came from two beautiful lions, Kala and Rapunzel, who were taken away from their mothers as cubs. They were very, very young, and put to work in a circus in Peru before authorities came in, and she made her way back to Africa through this incredible Adi alliance and Imoya. And this little girl Carla was attacked at a local zoo that she was taken to, and lost a lot of her tail. And her story is amazing, and you can find out all about that on the Adi site or at Imoya. But what these two beautiful brave lions who had such an incredible journey with a lot of despair in it is the message to never be without hope, to stay in trust and to stay in faith, and not go into this theme that keeps recurring as more and more people are raising in humanity, that there's a lot of bewilderment, a lot of people that have no hope, and in regards to specific topics that are very close to my heart, like animal abuse and trauma, and just the sad state of affairs where we're so out of balance with nature, and the poaching. And we can get really involved in our stories, but I'm going to speak more about Satsara and how you can use the trust process in a video when I'm sure that my internet stays. But just for today, take this gift from two very brave lionesses in spirit, Kala and Rapunzel, who are really saying to any of you, if you're listening to this and you're feeling a little bewildered by the state of affairs right now, or you've lost something, or you're grieving, that despair is not something that you want to keep trying to run away from, trying to stay two steps in front of, and it definitely is, for me, ultimate fear, because there's no hope. This is the learned helplessness that we see so many animals and people that are really, really shut down in their process. And if you're on here, I can't see any comments, but say hi, give me a hello, send me some love, share this with anyone who wants to receive some messages. Hi Angela, nice to see you here. So before I lose my signal, I'm going to just keep it really, really short, and if you have any questions, just let me know, because one of the things about the sneaky things about despair, or this sort of learned helplessness and shutdown, where we're just so afraid that we actually go into paralysis or a state of non-doing that's not productive. It's not a healing state of non-doing. Hi Celeste, is that we have to keep looking at the problem with being even marginally educated. So thinking from here in the suffering of animals and humans, is we have to understand how quietly despair can creep up on us, especially if you're in philanthropic work, or you're working at sanctuaries, or you're working in a place where it just seems that your effort isn't enough, or it's not making enough change, or it's not happening quick enough. Is you're going to keep asking yourself, with this big heavy weight of despair sitting on you, how the hell did we get here as a collective, but as in our individual as well. And to be clear, I'm not saying that being stuck in a state of despair is something that I am at for very, very long, because I have these tools and I know how to use the trust process to get me moving again, to use my anger, to use my fear, to use these heavier vibrational frequencies to move me forward to do more. And when I talk to a lot of people about practicing courage, I talk about accessing the body. You have to feel in order to heal. And those of you that know me know this is something that I talk about a lot, because without the body having the somatic experience or release of trauma, and only clearing it in an emotional or mental level, it builds up and it builds up until your body says no. And this is when we're in a state of disease where we want to really look at how we can start to resolve trauma and access these parts through feeling. And what I've seen is, even though we know better cognitively in our minds, so many people do not want to go and do the work. So when I talk to people about practicing courage or returning to trust, I talk about accessing the body from a somatic space of feeling. Meditation is not the same as the trust process because you're still engaging the mind, whereas the trust process is this place of non-thinking. It's the 0 point field where information can come through to you. Hi, Joanna. So, all the things that you practice to keep your physical body strong, the running, the dancing, the yoga, the movement, the food you're putting in your body, they're all great ways to access the body. But we're looking at a total holistic approach here. And what I've seen so many people in pain facing these days has really been, the key has been to deepening into trust, to feel your body, to feel what you're feeling. Is this making sense? So if you feel like you are avoiding or deflecting or diverting pain, or you're going into overwhelm or bewilderment or whatever else, just remember that we have to stay in trust. We have to be brave enough to go underneath all these emotions to the feeling part. And then by feeling it, scrape off these top layers of anger or sadness or frustration or hurt or whatever it is that's showing up for you, so that you can get back into your center, into your deep down, into your true nature, and then the gift will reveal something underneath it that's more in line, in attunement with peace and calm and grace and faith and ease and steadiness and happier. Right? Is that even a word? And all of it together for me is what I call presencing. It's about being in the present moment, so that you can have that space to actually create your future, a brilliant future, because we all want better. And so many of my clients often avoid this process because the process work of accessing and staying with your body is not always comfortable. So the strategy that so many people do is actually to outrun fear or outrun despair or outrun hopelessness, to always actually be fully engaged in the mind, in the brain. So I touch on these places where it truly feels hopeless on some degree, and then we have to tap back in. And sometimes it is about physically releasing. Oh, there's a little Dussie here. Little Dussies, if you know what they are. They're the oldest living relatives of elephants, and they're just like little baby bunnies. They're so amazing to be in nature. So sometimes we need to cry long and hard, or scream until you're hoarse, or get really, really angry and dump it down and make it matter, make it count for something. Because by the end of all that processing, you're going to be really feeling your body. You're going to be feeling spent, or you're going to feel like you've filled yourself up, or you've just emptied yourself out to make room for more stuff. And what I've realized, just being out here in the stillness with nature, with the lions, with the people that are incredible, that are visiting here, and the people that run Amaya, is that there's so much more space to be in a place of absolute clarity, to recognize that we need each other now more than ever, and we need the world to change, and we each have to be responsible for our peace. We need people to wake up. We need people to bear witness to the things that are suffering, that are insane, so that they aren't alone in their suffering, but also that they can raise the vibration and the awareness to what is actually going on that you maybe didn't even have a clue about, like canned lion hunting. Why it's, I don't take people when they visit here to certain places because they're not ethical. those cute little baby lions that you're petting and having your photograph taken with, or the drugged out tigers in the Buddhist temples. It's so out of alignment. Those lions end up being canned lions. You're signing their death warrant, and a lot of people very innocently don't understand that. Ask questions. Know that the elephants that are maybe in that sanctuary that you visited didn't get there the way that you were told. Unfortunately, there are a lot of people that are not aligned to the animal's best interests, like the people at Amaya. They're totally driven by giving these animals quality of life after so much trauma elsewhere. And we need movements. We need people to roll up their sleeves and get to work. We have work to do, and we need to feel that what we're hungry for. What change are you hungry for? I'd love you to type it in the comments below, because when we feel strongly enough, when it hurts, when we feel the pain that it causes by doing nothing, then we can take little steps one by one and just change things 1 degree at a time, because we are all part of the human family. Society, all the things that people complain about in society that are going wrong, in governments and institutions, we're part of society. So we're collectively responsible to play our part. And I don't know what it is to be human if it's not to stand up for one another and for the things that matter to us, and to try to change things for the better, so that it's not just about you or me with internet connections who are getting to live joyful lives, but everyone. And I don't know how I can be human kindness, or keep my head up high and know that I'm doing the best that I can, and taking a stand for animals and people that have suffered horrendous, unspeakable traumas. And remember, trauma's not always in the big stuff. It's in the small, accumulative toxic stress that builds up and builds up and builds up. We've all been traumatized on some level. So if I wasn't doing my own personal work to scrape off all these layers and layers of emotional crud and judgments and projections and all the places where I go into total overwhelm in my head and drop back down into my heart, so that stuff doesn't get in the way. And if I don't take the time to use the trust process and do the shadow work and actively participate in the small steps constantly, I'm going to then go back into that old pattern of outrunning despair. And you can't outrun despair. You can't outrun fear. You have to feel it, because despair is what happens when that emotional crud piles up around you, and we have to change it. So if you found yourself feeling more and more sadness at what you see around you, or on the news, or your Facebook feed, or in stories, know as well that, ask yourself, is it true? Is this true? And find your deep down and trust yourself, because when you get moved from the things that are true for you, that matter to you, that's when you create the greatest change. And when you are willing to stay in that space of what is, everything starts to change. So listen to music that helps you to release your grief, if that's what you require, and just remember what makes you happy. Sit down on your yoga mat in a quiet space and meditate, or get present and do some futuring to tap into what it is that you want. And then if you need to, move your body in the company of animals. Go out in nature, so that you can realign and follow your impulses and attune to your internal rhythm. Access what makes you feel your despair rather than outrun it, because that's where it matters. And if we don't feel, we don't heal. So access your body and process your way through it to the other side. And it doesn't come from here. It's got to come from the deep down. So that you can really start to get to the other side. Thank you for the love. Thank you for the hearts. It just feels so like everything slows down when you get out in nature. And my battery doesn't seem to be charging very well here, so I might lose you. But just remember that you can understand a whole lot more clearly your own particular default patterns with all their complexities, and bring yourself back to the simple, natural arising of care and compassion and empathy. Yeah, exactly, Adi. If you don't feel, you don't heal. So, it is possible to walk a path between the extremes, to be the bridge between, opposites, or pessimism and optimism. I think I'm both and everything in between, because that's the nature of being human. And if we're going to respond with skill and compassion to all of this, we don't have to come to a solid conclusion about the nature of anything. That's the power of choice, and the power of choosing to trust what is attuned and aligned with what you're doing in that moment, and be willing to change your mind later on. Be willing to choose a different point of view when you have educated, or you have tapped back into the truth of what it is and what it looks like for you. Because if there's never been a time in history ever, and this is what these two lines in spirit were saying, it's just like, you cannot lose hope. You cannot go into despair. Life is life, and there are going to be times when it's easy. There are going to be times when it's harder, and circumstances are always changing. September is all about adjustments, as I've spoken about before. This is the time to recalibrate. This is the time to attune yourself to your North Star, your compass direction, and get really clear on what it is that you want. Because things, excuse me, things change slowly and inexorably, and they change suddenly, and they change unexpectedly, and we're always looking for the path of least resistance, always. And you don't get to change your environment, but you can certainly adjust to your environment in how you're responding. So often we see our own hand in the circumstances that we experience, and sometimes we're very blindsided by the situations beyond our control. I mean, certain things you can't change, but you can change how you can support, and you can change how you contribute. And we all know that when things are going relatively smoothly, it's easy to become complacent and assume that everything's going to go our way and it'll just automatically continue. But you can't meditate yourself into abundance, and you can't see what you can't see, or what you're not willing to see. You had a meltdown, the streets in... Oh, Celeste. Yeah, very weird and intense. So just remember, our struggle... regardless of whether we assume and project, or we feel it and we tap into it, whether we're going into despair or defeatism, or we're assuming that nothing's ever going to change, or that things will change, and trying to force and will it, our struggle is always going to be to pin down, I think in both cases, that we take whatever we're experiencing currently, and then we project it into the future. And we very selectively, oh my gosh, this place is so alive. Sorry, that's what you call a pattern interrupt. We're very selectively recalling our past experiences that reinforce our point of view of that this is just the way things are, and this is where people go into despair and hopelessness and become automated and shut down, and think that that's their lot in life, or that they can't do anything because what they're doing is too small. Like even recycling, start small with the things you can change. Celeste, take whatever you can from this video, and the wind is blowing and it's beautiful here, but yeah, what would it take? Some action to get you here. So just remember, Celeste, hopefully this helps you, and if you're listening to this on the replay, just remember that our struggle is always going to be to pin down our living on the spot experiences, which is very different to being in the present moment of trusting that whatever arises, that you can love it. even when you don't love it. Because that struggle is just so futile. And we try and push and shove and attempt to get a grasp on what life is about, rather than looking at what moves you. You know, I think Joseph Campbell said that we're not so much looking for the meaning of life, but what makes us feel alive. And that's really what I want, is to live moment by moment into what moves me, even if it's pain, even if it's horrible, to a point where I feel like I'm alive, that I'm not numbed out in The Walking Dead. I've tried that and it's not fun. So just stop forcing, if you are, to try and pin anything down or make anything solid or conclusionary, because that way you eliminate your choice to change or grow or expand. It's stagnation. And we need to be forced outside of our comfort zone sometimes, because either you're going to live, if you keep trying to manage things and cope, it's very hard to see beyond the circumstances and the mood of the moment that you're in. And oftentimes we make very impulsive choices that we wish we didn't, because we're moving from despair, or we're trying to avoid or spiritually bypass pain. So, there's only two alternatives, isn't there? There's the glass half full, or there's the glass half empty. But a glass with the water up to the midpoint, it's not making a statement either way. If it's not half full or it's not half empty, then what is it? The water glass is not being blissful or ecstatic or happy about being half full, but it's not discouraged by being half empty either. It just is. It's a glass with water in it up to the middle. And that's kind of how the world is. And what these two lions in spirit were saying to me today is, the world just is. The world just is. It's not a this versus that, or a good versus bad world. It's just an interdependent world. And that interdependent world is the dancing ground of all the bodhisattvas, the sattvas. The bodhisattvas are calling us all the time, who thrive in the aliveness of life, in the dynamism of life, and in the interconnectedness of life. And if we can recognize that every sorrow, every heartache, every pain, every trial, every tribulation is an invitation to fresh compassion, trust, faith, grace in its response, then we can start to open up to a much broader perspective of our situation. It's just like, okay, once I was there and I survived it, and I become more resilient, and I've learned from it, and now I'm going to move forward again. So it may be because these enlightened Buddhas and monks and people that really practice this like devotionally, that they've learned that no matter how bad things can become, it's always possible to change one's attitude, our attitude on the spot. It takes a split second to just change how we're viewing things, and that flow of compassion, it can never be interrupted. In fact, with every new crisis or every new challenge, its flow increases. So from the lions from Amaya today, I've got tons of news that I'll be sharing in over the next couple of days when I get back. The lions are beautiful. They really are. And I'm going to go back out now and work some more with them, and the horses that are here. So stay tuned. Let me have any questions or comments that are coming up. Let me know if today's slowness of today was helpful of you, and to just receive that the world needs you. So there is no room for despair, but you can certainly feel it and then choose to change your mind again. Okay, it's not set in stone. And if you're in a funky place, or you're not feeling particularly connected to your aliveness, tap back in, because life is never going to get easy, but it can be simple. And if you are going to learn to keep shying away rather than facing pain, then you're stuck in this human condition right now that is bewildering and very much clouded in despair. So don't lose yourself and don't be consumed by your fears for the world, because you're going to lose your balance. And it's very hard to think about the challenges that are facing our planet right now and all the beautiful sentience on it without feeling overwhelmed. It's, you know, it just seems for me is that humanity never learns from history, and instead we keep perpetuating the same dysfunctional patterns and behaviors in every single generation. And only now, you know, now we have this capacity to create havoc on a global scale to the extent of really threatening the continuation of life on this planet, not just for all the other living creatures, but for humanity itself. So if we have that capacity to destroy, we have double amplification of the capacity to create and rejuvenate and make right the wrongs of past generations. So please, please, please don't give up. Don't go into despair. Just know that we have to put these old age habits of violence and greed and deception and all these other bad habits behind us, and we can't do that if you're running from this hypervigilance state. So stretch yourself beyond the narrow bounds of self-interest and start looking out for the collective and the group legacy, because we are the ancestors of future generations, and there may not be future generations if we keep going the way that we go. So just be aware and just know that the power of choice is yours. All right, I'm gonna love you and leave you at that. I'll be talking more about this and samsara and how it can apply to you in times of trouble. And if you would be interested in learning more about attachment styles and how you can come back to creating secure attachment for yourself, let me know. I have been feeling the call to offer that course again. It'll be an online program, and we'll go through all the different attachment styles and show you how that you can actually start to change that and come back to secure attachment. All right, guys, lots of love. Bye. Mwah.